Mr. Chancellor, colleagues, honored guests, Carleton graduates, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to present Mr. Marc Kielburger and Mr. Craig Kielburger, both of whom are Canadian authors, humanitarians, and activists for children's rights and co-founder of Free the Children, the world's largest international development and youth engagement charity that has built more than 650 schools in developing countries and established more than 30,000 alternative income projects. They are also co-CEOs of Me to We, its partner social enterprise, which supports the work of Free the Children while encouraging ethical living and social responsibility. The oft-told story of Craig Kielburger is the stuff of legends. It tells how 12-year-old Craig, for a school project, researched and gave a speech on the plight of child laborers in developing countries who are deprived of a chance for education, entrapped in a life of grinding poverty, working long hours for little or no pay to help feed themselves and their families. Many children, and likely some of you, have written such essays and studied such subjects and make fine speeches, but very few commit to change the situation. At the tender age of 12, Craig did. He traveled to developing countries, gained a media following, and confronted many world leaders to end the situation. Of course, he wasn't always welcomed, but he was joined by his brother Marc, and they have persisted in this goal. Together, they realized the power of children in the developed world to make change for their brothers and sisters in the developing world. They also realized the need to build and manage the organizational infrastructure to engage thousands of young people in advancing the cause, and thus develop the Free the Children organization and the Me to We social enterprise. Malcolm Gladwell's best-selling book, The Tipping Point, talks about what is necessary to make big change happen, to move from small, isolated efforts to large, mainstream, substantive, life-changing movements. In particular, he talks about the three kinds of people required to make this change happen. He calls them first the salesperson, who motivates and convinces people to embrace and commit to the idea of the benefits to themselves and others of the change. Second, the maven, who provides the information and the tools to make the change happen. And third, the connector, who brings together the diverse range of people and their skill sets to enable the change. All three are needed. The special thing about Marc and Craig Kielburger is that they are and they do all three. As you will soon hear, they are consummate, benevolent salesmen. They speak with fire and commitment about the need for, the value of, the possibility to actually make a difference, and the personal benefits from being a part of that change. They are mavens who gather and share the information and tools, who build organizations and communication networks, foundations, and social enterprises so people know what to do and have the means to act for effective change. They also are the connectors who reach out to a diverse set of people, linking first of all children and youth, but also government leaders and other NGOs. They also use their business knowledge and acumen to connect with and connect in management and workers in major companies in the developed world. They motivate and show them how committing to good works, including the elimination of child labor, can help build the values of the corporation that will in turn attract and retain committed, talented staff who find purpose in both the work they do and the causes they serve. They are all three, salespeople, mavens, and connectors, and as a result, great change happens around and because of them. In show business, extraordinary performers who are fantastic at all three of singing, acting, and dancing are called triple threats. Craig and Marc Kielburger are the triple threats of humanitarian social change. Carleton University is not the first to honor them and their accomplishments. Marc Kielburger is a member of the Order of Canada and a Rhodes Scholar. Among his many honors, he has received the Ontario Medal for Good Citizenship. In 2004, he was named one of Canada's top 40 under 40, and he was also chosen by the World Economic Forum as one of the 250 young global leaders. Among his many honors, Craig Kielburger is a companion of the Order of Merit, has received the Meritorious Service Medal, the Ontario Medal for Good Citizenship, the Roosevelt Freedom Medal, and the World Children's Prize for the Rights of Children. Mr. Chancellor, in recognition of exemplary leadership in the promotion of the rights of the child and promotion of ethical living and social responsibility, I request that you confer the degree of laws honoris causa upon Craig Kielburger and upon Marc Kielburger.
By virtue of my authority, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Chancellor Chi, the Senate, President Runta, members of the board, the university faculty, honored guests, family of graduates, and of course, graduating students. My brother Marc has very graciously allowed me to present on behalf of both of us this afternoon. I'm standing before you in the shadow of Canadian government. I feel so moved to quote words of wisdom from a former head of state. Now, you might imagine Marc and I don't often quote former US President George W. Bush, but standing before his own alma mater of Yale University, he once said, "To those of you who graduate with straight A's, congratulations, I'm sure you'll go on to do great things. And to those of you who finish with a C- average, maybe one day you too will be president of the United States." Marc and I are deeply honored to be welcomed as honorary members of the Carleton family. Deeply honored to stand in front of you today and humbled by this privilege. We wish to express our gratitude, of course, but more than that, to applaud you. To applaud you for all your hard work, and being here today was not an easy task. It represents years of effort, countless essays, exams, maybe a few all-nighters, or if you were like Marc and I, maybe more than a few all-nighters in this journey. You leave here with a tremendous accomplishment to your credit. But more than that, you leave here with a very rare and precious gift, something that is all too uncommon in our world today. A university education, both at an undergrad and a graduate level, is something that very few will ever have a chance to achieve. We live in a world where 113 million children between the ages of 5 and 11 years old have never once stepped foot into a classroom. And I don't mean an extraordinary hall like this one, the classes and the professors that you've spent the past years working with. I mean never learning how to read or write, to learn their most basic rights, to learn how to sign their own name. In much of the work that Marc and I do is overseas in regions of the world where when you spend time with children, whether they be in the streets or refugee camps or in various communities around the world, and you ask if you could have anything at all, if you could have your greatest wish come true, your greatest dream, what would it be? Most often, kids will look at us and they'll say a chance to go to school. But for so many children in our world, whether it be kids that we've worked with in Sierra Leone, West Africa, who were forcibly recruited to fight in the conflict, where the schools were filled with bullet holes and teachers executed, leaving children no family other than the rebels to join. Or parts of the world like Haiti that faced devastating natural disasters and earthquakes. In the case of Haiti, our schools were turned into orphanages because so many of the schools had lost their families. So many of the children had lost their families and loved ones. Or parts of the world like Southeast Asia, where, as Louise shared with you, our work first started. And to this day, in some of the rural communities of Pakistan and some of the parts of the world, there are functioning slave markets where people's debts are bought and sold as bonded laborers. You know, we build schools around the world. It's the core function of our international development programs. But I assure you that we have learned by far the greatest lessons over this journey. Both Marc and I are honored to stand before you and to receive an honorary doctorate. Marc and I both hold graduate degrees. And we share this not for any reason other than simply to say that the greatest lessons we've ever learned have been from many of the children that we've had the honor to work with. We'll never forget in the work that we do bringing young Canadians to volunteer abroad, we were walking down the street in Bangkok, the capital of Thailand. And there was a young street girl who looked about 8 or 9 years old, and she called out to us and she motioned. She cupped her hand and she touched her mouth. And it's a universal sign in developing countries when children are hungry and they're asking for food. And one of the young volunteers with us reached into his backpack and handed her an orange, and we continued to walk, but for some reason we stopped and we looked back at her. And she was holding the orange in her hands. She was peeling it, but more than that, she was practically tearing at it. You could see in her eyes how hungry she was. And she stopped when she looked at all the other children around her who were also staring at her, who were also hungry. And she looked down at this orange in her hands and started to break it into tiny pieces and to share an equal sliver, an equal piece with each of the children on the streets. Graduates, my request is a very simple and humble one. That you remember that message of that young girl, because today you sit with an extraordinary gift also in your hands. And we ask you simply to think not only about what it can do for you, but how you can use it to help others. I know that many of you here have picked careers and areas of study that lead towards service. Many of you chosen areas that lead towards serving in government, serving in nonprofit, social sector, etc. It's not an easy path. It's one that you don't leave with the simple equation MBA equals BMW. But you do leave instead with something very different, and I hope just as appealing. You leave with stock options, but in a better world. And to those of you, I know many of you also have pursued careers in criminology. Well, suffice to say, I hope we never meet professionally. But sitting here today as you leave, at this next part of your life's journey, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you want the most? How will you define success? As you pick your career and you pick your path, is success the type of car that you drive? Is it the size of a bank account? Is it a fancy title on a business card? Or is it something else? Is it something more lasting? You know, as we are here at Canada's capital university, in the shadow of governments, candidly, governments come and go. Laws get overturned. You know, in the financial sector, our world is going through turbulent times, to say the least, with credit swaps and defaults in Greece and Spain at the brink. Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, some of the great titans of our time were brought to their knees. Jobs come and go, money comes and go. In fact, the only thing that's perhaps truly lasting in this world is how you make another feel. As the elder who stood before here so beautifully said, how we make those feel in our daily actions, creating jobs that employ individuals to take care of their families, serving in government or serving in social sector in their communities, pursuing careers in law or criminology or social work. Just think about it for a moment. Nelson Mandela's mother left an amazing legacy, as did Dr. Martin Luther King's father. Standing before you, I hope to leave you with words that both my brother and I were honored to hear. Words that have helped to shape our work in the nonprofit field, but more than that, to shape the times when we have faced doubt or challenges. Both my brother and I had the honor to work alongside Mother Teresa before she passed away in Calcutta. And more than anyone else, for us, she symbolized what true success and leaving a true legacy means. She was a humble school teacher one day who saw a woman dying in the gutters, and picking up that woman, she set in motion a path where she helped quite literally millions around the world, both through direct action, but through inspiring them to find their own life journey. And as we left the Mother House on the final day, Mother Teresa walked us to the door. And I stammered, asking her a question I had always wanted to ask her. To ask her, how do you do it? How do you work every single day when you know that you can't help everyone. The problems in our world are simply overwhelming. And she smiled at the question. And she looked at my brother Marc and myself. When Mother Teresa looked at you, you felt like she was looking into your soul. She took our hands, and she had hands that felt like sandpaper. And she smiled. And she looked at us and said, "You have to realize that in our lives we do no great things, but we can do small things with great love." And so on behalf of both my brother and myself, we express our gratitude for this honor. We congratulate you and your family and faculty who have helped you on this journey. And to the 2012 graduating class of Carleton University, we say congratulations on all that you've accomplished, but most importantly, all that you will accomplish, those acts with small acts with great love that truly change this world. Best wishes, graduates.